Battlefield 1 sniping was notoriously difficult, due to old WW1 sniper limitations. In Battlefield 1, sniping was a notoriously challenging experience, and this difficulty was not arbitrary, it was deeply rooted in the historical limitations of World War I sniper technology. The developers at DICE made a deliberate design choice to reflect the technological constraints of the era. This meant that players didn't have access to modern high-precision optics, semi-automatic fire rates, or stabilization mechanisms that are often present in other war shooters. Instead, the experience was raw, slow, and unforgiving, requiring a level of patience and precision that mirrored the real-life sniping difficulties soldiers faced during the Great War. The optics in Battlefield 1 were particularly restrictive. Most sniper rifles featured scopes with fixed zoom levels, and these were not always ideal for the varied and rugged terrain of the game's maps. Unlike modern games where players can toggle between scope magnifications or benefit from digital enhancements, Battlefield 1 stuck to a historical approach. Scope glint was aggressive, making snipers easily detectable, and the lack of variable zoom meant that players had to be remarkably good at judging distances and bullet drop, just like WW1 marksmen who often used rudimentary sighting systems under stressful conditions. Bullet velocity and drop were another major factor contributing to the notorious difficulty. In keeping with historical authenticity, Battlefield 1 featured rifles that fired slower projectiles with significant bullet drop over long distances. This forced players to lead their targets substantially and account for gravity's impact across various ranges. For many players accustomed to modern sniper mechanics in games like Call of Duty or Battlefield 4, this felt like an alien skill set, one that demanded deep practice and muscle memory. There were no laser-straight bullets or forgiving hitboxes here. Every shot required calculation and control. The mechanics of holding your breath and steadiness were also critical factors. In real life, World War I snipers had to deal with unsteady bipods, inconsistent firing platforms, and physical fatigue. Battlefield 1 translated this into gameplay through sway mechanics and cooldown timers for breath control. Players couldn't hold their aim steady for long, and timing their shots became as important as aiming. This added another layer of difficulty, emphasizing that sniping was as much about discipline as it was about aim. The game rewarded calmness under pressure, much like it would have rewarded actual WW1 marksmen who had to take the perfect shot from trenches or craters. In addition, the environments in Battlefield 1 made sniping a tactical ordeal. The maps were wide, often filled with environmental obstructions like fog, smoke, mud, and uneven elevation, all conditions that plagued real WW1 battlefields. Visibility was often limited, and finding a good vantage point that offered cover while still providing a clear line of sight was rare. The dynamic weather systems could turn a clear sniping session into a foggy nightmare, forcing players to reposition constantly. Just as WW1 snipers had to adapt to ever-changing battlefield conditions, Battlefield 1 players had to adjust their strategies and locations frequently. Another notable element was the design of the sniper rifles themselves. Bolt-action rifles were the primary tools of long-range combat, and these had lengthy reload times, small magazine capacities, and relatively low rates of fire. A missed shot could mean death, especially in fast-paced matches where enemy players moved unpredictably. The risk-reward dynamic of choosing to play as a sniper mirrored the anxiety of real-life WW1 snipers, who were often isolated and vulnerable once discovered. The slow cycling of the bolt after each shot heightened the tension and required players to make each trigger pull count. The class system in Battlefield 1 also limited a sniper's toolkit compared to modern entries in the series. While recon players in later Battlefield titles might have drones, C4, or motion sensors, Battlefield 1 snipers had very limited gadgets, perhaps a flare gun for spotting or a tripwire bomb. This stripped-down arsenal meant that a sniper couldn't rely on high-tech support and had to depend almost entirely on map knowledge, positioning, and raw aim. This design choice ensured that sniping remained a pure, skill-based role with minimal artificial assistance. Moreover, Battlefield 1 introduced the concept of sweet spot mechanics for sniper rifles, meaning each rifle had an optimal kill range, where a shot to the torso would result in a one-hit kill. This was both a balancing decision and a nod to historical ballistics. It forced players to think more strategically about their positioning relative to enemy movement. Too close or too far, and the rifle would underperform. This unusual mechanic required snipers to not only be accurate but also have a deep understanding of engagement distances, turning the role into a cerebral one rather than just reflex-based. Many players found sniping in Battlefield 1 to be a test of patience and learning curve mastery. There was a sense of reward and accomplishment that came with landing a clean headshot at 300 meters with all the historical constraints in place. In contrast to more forgiving shooters, Battlefield 1 made sniping an elite skill, a niche role that only a subset of dedicated players could truly master. The steep curve filtered out casual attempts, but for those who committed, the satisfaction was immense. The community's perception of sniping in Battlefield 1 was polarizing. Some players praised its realism and skill ceiling, while others criticized it for being unnecessarily hard. But whether loved or loathed, few could deny that the sniping experience was unique in the genre. It recreated the tension, risk, and reward of long-range combat in a way that felt more grounded in history than in modern fantasy. This fidelity to the limitations of the era gave the game its identity and flavor, setting it apart from other military shooters. Ultimately, the notorious difficulty of sniping in Battlefield 1 was not a flaw, but a feature. By embracing the limitations of World War I sniper technology, DICE delivered a gameplay experience that demanded respect for the past and a high degree of player skill. It wasn't about quick-scoping or flashy montages, it was about holding your breath, waiting for the perfect shot, and honoring the brutal, deliberate nature of early 20th century warfare. In conclusion, Battlefield 1's approach to sniping was a deliberate homage to the realities of World War I, embedding the frustrations and limitations of early sniping into the very core of the gameplay. Rather than simplifying the role for accessibility, the developers chose to challenge players with historical accuracy, making each kill feel earned. In doing so, they created one of the most authentic and difficult sniping systems ever seen in a mainstream shooter, a legacy that continues to be debated and respected in gaming communities today.